Solving for variables. When solving for variables, the most important thing to remember is that whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side to make sure the equation stays equal. So, given 3x plus 5 equals negative 1, how do we solve for x? Well, first we need to get rid of this 5. So, to get rid of a positive 5, we could just subtract 5. But we have to do it to both sides. So we would end up with 3x is equal to, well, negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. Now we need to get rid of this 3. Well, it's this 3 multiplied by x. So if we're multiplying by a 3, we can get rid of it by dividing by a 3. So divide by 3 on both sides, and we would get x is equal to negative 2. Now let's manipulate this a little bit. If we wanted to find what x squared was equal to, we could just square both sides of this, and we would get x squared is equal to 4. But if we wanted to reverse that, we could just take the square root of both sides. But we would get x is equal to positive 2. But here, x equal negative 2, and here x equal to positive 2. That doesn't make sense. So when you take the square root of both sides, you have to remember that it can be the plus or minus square root. Let's look at an example where x is in the denominator. Here we have 11 plus 1 over x equals 13. Now there's two ways we can solve this, and we'll look at both of them. The first is to just subtract 11 from both sides. So we would get 1 over x is equal to 2, and then we could multiply by x on both sides, and we would get 1 is equal to 2x, and then we just divide by 2 on both sides, and we would find that x is equal to 1/2. The second way of solving this is we could multiply by x first. If we do that over here, we would get 11x, and then 1x multiplied by x would just, the x's would cancel, and you would just have 1. So plus 1, 13 times x is 13x. Well, now we have a variable on both sides, so we need to isolate it. So just like we could subtract an 11 over here, we can subtract 11x on both sides. So let's do that. Minus 11x minus 11x. And we would get 1 is equal to x. And then we can divide by 2 on both sides, and we would get x is equal to 1/2. The same answer as before. Let's look at an example where we have two variables. Here we have 2y plus 5xy is equal to 1. When you have two variables, your answer will not be a constant, and you will be rewriting one variable in terms of the other. So let's solve for y. So here we have a y in both of our terms over here, and we can actually take that out by factoring. So if we did that and took the y out, we would get y times 2 plus 5x is equal to 1. And we don't have to factor y out on both sides, because this is actually not changing the value of this expression, so we don't need to do it to both sides. So now we can just divide by this entire thing here, 2 plus 5x, and divide over here by 2 plus 5x, and we would find that y is equal to 1 over 2 plus 5x. So we can divide by entire expressions as well as just individual numbers and individual variables. Let's look at one last example that brings all these concepts together. Here we have y over xy plus 4 equals negative x divided by y minus 5. This may seem complicated, but we're going to take it step by step. We have a y in the numerator and denominator over here, so we can just cancel that out. And we can also move all the constants to one side. So let's subtract by 4 on both sides. And if we rewrite this, it'll be 1 over x is equal to negative x divided by y minus 9. And now we can move all our variables over to one side and be left with a constant on the other. So if we add x over y to both sides, plus x over y, then we'll have 1 over x plus xy plus x over y is equal to negative 9. And now if we multiply by our common denominator, which is xy, do that on both sides. And let me scroll down a little bit here. One x multiplied by xy, well, the x's will cancel and we'll be left with just y. xy, x divided by y multiplied by xy, well, the y's will cancel and we'll have x squared. Negative 9 times xy is just going to be negative 9xy. Now, if we subtract a y on both sides, we can move all our y's to one side. So if we do that, we'll have x squared is equal to negative 9xy minus y. And if we scroll down a bit more, now we can factor out our y over here. So if we do that, we'll have y times negative 9x minus 1. Let me make that parentheses yellow. And over here, we'll still have x squared. The last thing we need to do is divide by negative 9x minus 1 on both sides, and then we'll have our y isolated. So if we do that, divide by negative 9x minus 1, and divide by negative 9x minus 1 over here, then finally we'll end up with our answer for y, which is going to be y is equal to x squared divided by negative 9x minus 1. And we're done.